Hello everyone, LVD here, bringing you another deck tech, and the one featured today is a red, blue, green Slivers deck. And right off the bat you can see in the top left corner that we have Gerlicher Sliver. This is the main reason we are playing blue, otherwise the deck is mainly red and green. And Gerlicher Sliver is very important because not only is it a 1-drop, and I'll get to that later, but it also grants all your Slivers flying, which is almost equal to unblockable, barring Restoration Angel. But having this effect is very powerful because in any sort of stalemate or board stall, having the flying ability makes it very hard for your opponent to win. Now moving on, we have Striking Sliver. This is also 1-drop, and granting all your Slivers first strike is very good, especially on defense. If your opponent is on any sort of creature strategy, then having all your creatures at first strike makes it very hard for your opponent to get any profitable attacks through. And even if you have a lot of small creatures, if they all have first strike, they're still able to team up and take down big attackers without having any losses. Now moving on, we have Mana Weft Sliver. This is arguably the most important sliver in the deck because it can ramp you into your bigger Slivers, and it works very well with our previous 1-drops because you can go turn 1 1-drop, turn 2 Mana Weft Sliver, and on that same turn you can use your 1-drop from the turn earlier and use that 1-drop to generate an additional mana to cast another 1-drop. And now you have 3 creatures in play on turn 2, but now all your creatures also generate mana, so on turn 3 you have access to 5 or 6 mana, making you able to cast your very big Slivers ahead of curve, which is very powerful. And also it generates a mana of any color, so you're able to cast even your red and blue Slivers. Moving on, we have Predatory Sliver, which is another very important card in the deck. It's a very efficient sliver because it's a 2/2 for 2, but it gives all your other creatures +1/+1 as well, making this a very good anthem effect for just 2 mana, making your striking Slivers have an extra power, makes them very good at blocking attackers, and once you start casting multiple Predatory Slivers, your team just starts growing out of control. Next on the line is Blur Sliver. This card may not seem that powerful on the surface, but it can lead to very explosive starts, and it also synergizes very well with Mana Weft Sliver, because if you have a Blur Sliver and a Mana Weft Sliver in play, you can cast, for example, your 1-drop and immediately tap it for mana, making them basically free. Next up is Battle Sliver, pumping all your creatures for 2 power, combining very well again with first strike and being very deadly with haste. Next up is Thorncaster Sliver, which acts as removal in a deck, making all your attacking creatures able to do 1 damage before blocks is very important, because that means they can take out a big blocker and still get through for damage. And if you happen to have multiple Thorncasters out, they do still all trigger separately, making you able to take out even bigger blockers. And then finally we have Megantic Sliver, being basically an overrun for your team and also being a 6/6 by itself. If you resolve this and are able to attack, you should be able to win the game. Moving on to our non-creature spells, we have some early removal in Pillar of Flame. Then we have some card advantage in Tracker's Instinct. This is also the second reason we're playing blue. And then we have Farseek to ramp some more and fix our mana. A Bonfire of the Damned, because we are ramping, we are able to resolve pretty big bonfires, and if we're lucky enough to miracle it, it can also help against aggro. And a Singleton Door of Destinies, which is pretty good against control. If they manage to wipe your board but you still have an active Door of Destinies, your follow-up creatures will be much more dangerous and harder to deal with. Now let's take a look at our mana base. We are running 4 Cavern of Souls, which make all your Slivers uncounterable and tap for any color of mana. We are also running 4 Mutavaults, which besides being lands are also creatures. They are also slivers, so they get all the bonuses of your other slivers. And if in the early turns you have some spare mana that you aren't using, you can still activate your Mutavault and get in for some damage. They're also very good against control, because even if they manage to wipe your board, you still have Mutavaults that can get in for damage. So all upside there. Now let's take a look at our sideboard. The cards on the left side are mainly against creature type decks, while the cards on the right side are more against control. Pillar of Flame, Bonfire and Mizzium Mortars come in against aggro and creature decks, while Door of Destinies, Negate, Descendant's Path, Tracker's Instinct and Domri Raid are good against control type decks, giving you some more card advantage and ways to deal with non-creature spells. Descendant's Path also combines very well with Mutavault, so even if you don't have an actual sliver in play, you can still activate your Mutavault and have it be a sliver for the Descendant's Path trigger, so you can still gain advantage that way. And to finish this deck, I wanted to show you this quick clip to showcase the power of Mana Weft Sliver. So I got turn 1 Striking Sliver into turn 2 Mana Weft Sliver, tapping the first Striking Sliver for a second one. So we got 3 creatures in play on turn 2. Turn 3 we're able to play our Blur Sliver, and now still cast a Farseek and also our Gale Rider Sliver. So now we have access to 8 mana on turn 4. We are lucky enough to top deck a Megantic Sliver, and now we're able to cast our Megantic Sliver and still are able to attack with 3 creatures including the Megantic Sliver, getting in for 15 damage and being able to win the following turn. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next deck, and as always, take care.